So idea of this session today, we might be spending maybe 60 minutes, maybe somewhere between 60 to 80 minutes to talk about how to build best practice resume, especially focusing on FP&A roles. And I will be walking through my resume, which I have been appearing for, I don't know, more than 25 interviews in the last 8 to 10 years. So I'll be sharing all of my experience in terms of the building of what goes into a good practice FP&A resume. I've also reviewed about hundreds of resume while taking interviews. So I'll share my experience in terms of what should you do, what you should avoid in terms of best practices and common mistakes for FP&A resumes. Okay. So that's going to be our agenda for the next 1 hour or so. And quickly, I'll just cover today's roadmap. We'll talk about different best practices for resume mistakes to avoid and common resume interview tools that I have been using in the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, which I think a lot of people can get value from. So these are the topics that we will be covering today. Again, we will be taking questions, so keep your questions in the chat box. So if you have a question, we will take pauses at relevant intervals. So between intervals, I'll take pauses and take questions. However, if those questions don't get answered, then we will definitely have the ending part, which is the last 10 to 15 minutes to take the Q&A. Yeah. Quickly, introduction about myself. I have about 15 years of finance and FP&A experience. I've worked across multiple industries in companies like EY, Citi, Pfizer, Coursera. Okay. At present, I am the co-founder, lead faculty at FP&A Professionals Institute, regular contributor at many FP&A forums, and also author of 2 FP&A books, which is the ones you can see in the background, all about FP&A and the from accounting to FP&A. Okay. We started training part-time in 2018, 2020, between 2018 and 2022, and then gradually moved into this FP&A Professionals, which was a blog back in 2021-22. It became into a full-time institute, and over the years, we've trained more than 3,500 students across all of these trainings that you see on the screen. And our most popular program is the FP&A Masterclass, which is a live interactive program where we talk about how to get into FP&A roles, including all the basic skills that are required, including budgeting, forecasting, management, reporting, data storytelling, and business presentations. I'll talk more about the FP&A Masterclass later on in the program in this session. However, what I'll do is I'll quickly. So there's a question in the chat box. Can you review our resume prepared by us if possible? So we will do that. So let's try to do that. Although it's not possible for me to review all of yours resume, right? I may not be able to review all 25 of your resumes. But let me see what we can do. So let's get to the end of the session and then we'll do whatever we can do best. Okay. Quickly, in terms of my career and why probably you should listen to me for the next 1 hour. I just wanted to spend maybe 2 minutes on that so that I can convince you that probably you might want to listen to me for the next 1 hour or so. Okay. So I started my career back in 2010, which was into audits. Once I cleared my basic qualification, which is chartered accountancy back. So I completed my intermediate level of A and then joined into internship with EY into audits. And then during the internship, I completed my CA somewhere in 2020, 2012. And I continued with EY for about a year after qualification. When I left EY, I was an executive in audit, and my interest was not into audit. That's why I decided to explore other opportunities, and that's how I got into FP&A. Between EY and my next role, I had probably given more than 13 interviews. I got 11 rejections and 2 offer letters. So if you see that my success ratio was very bad. So can somebody tell me what was my success ratio in my first transitioning from my first role at EY to my first FP&A role? Okay, what is my success ratio? You get 13 interviews, 11 rejections, and 2 offer letters. What is the success ratio? Okay, it is less than 20%, right? So somewhere around 15%. One of those offers was from Citi, which was an analyst role in FP&A. I joined Citibank as an analyst in 2013, worked in Citi at different FP&A roles. Over a period of 5 years, I became FP&A analyst to senior analyst, from senior analyst to a FP&A manager. When I left Citi in 2019, I was a FP&A manager. Okay. Again, during this period, I might have given a lot of interviews. 8 of them to be precise, right? About 8 to 9 interviews. And again, I got 4 rejections and 4 offer letters. So my success ratio slightly improved, right? From 15% to now it became 50%. I got 4 rejections out of 8 interviews and 4 offer letters. Okay. Somewhere in 2020, I moved from city to another industry, from banking to edtech. Okay. And I gave interviews for a FP&A senior manager role. Again, right, if you notice, 8 interviews, 4 rejections, 50% success ratio. I worked there for a year or so and then moved into a new role, which was FP&A lead at FP&A APAC lead at Coursera, which was from 2021 to 2024. Again, I gave about 4 to 5 interviews, got 1 rejection and 3 offer letters. So if you notice, over the time, my success ratio has improved from 15% to 75%. Earlier, I was giving like 13, 14 interviews and I was getting 1 or 2 offer letters. Now, if I give like 4 interviews, I get 3 offer letters and 1 rejection. Again, these are just some statistics so that you know how you can improve, right, over time, when you pay focused attention to crafting your resume, when you pay focused attention to preparing for interviews and give it the time and attention it deserves. You can also improve your success ratio over time as you put in more effort and more, you become better and better at the skill of preparing your resume and preparing yourself for the interviews. Okay. Let me take a pause here, see if there are any comments, questions in the chat box before I get into today's session. Okay. Anybody wants to share their success ratio, right? How many interviews they give and how many offers they get, right? How many rejections they get. Okay. So in that case, we'll move on. I'll just go to the next session. What I would request is, don't send me personal DMs. I may not be able to answer them right away because I'm delivering the session. So you can put it in the group chat box. If you have any direct messages for me, wait till the end when I am taking the Q&A. So I may not be able to respond to any direct messages while I am taking the session. Okay, so with that, we'll get into today's session, and I hope you guys have your resumes open with you. In case you don't, maybe I'll give you 30 seconds, open up your resume in the Word document or PDF, whatever format you have, and then we might be able to use that for this session in terms of some activities that we have planned. Okay, so Vineet is saying, later on, will you guide any Coursera courses to be done in forecasting and budgeting? Definitely, I can share that. There are a couple of good courses on Coursera. I will definitely be sharing that with you on budgeting and forecasting. Okay. So remind me at the end. I'll come back to that question in the Q&A. Okay. So first of all, tell me, why is your resume important? Why do you think we should spend time on building your resume? Can you give me 1 or 2 reasons, right? Why should you, why are you here, right? For the next 90 minutes or so, why are you giving your time on a Friday evening where you could be doing something else, right? So why is your resume important? Can you give me just 1 or 2 reasons why you think is your resume important? Okay, for getting shortlisted to the interview. So a very precise answer, right? Manoj is like to the point, right? It is to getting yourself shortlisted for interview. Okay, to get shortlisted, because it is the first step of getting shortlisted. It is the first impression that the recruiter gets, right? So absolutely right, right? All of your answers are bang on. So the most important, the best way I like to put this is, it it is your first impression in terms of your recruiter, and more importantly than the recruiter, your hiring manager or your boss, right, who you might be working for a significant amount of time, right? So this is your chance to make a very good or bad, right, whatever, depending on your resume, first impression in terms of you marketing yourself to the recruiter as well as to your maybe your future manager or your future boss. Okay, it reflects the person's identity. Okay, absolutely. Vineet is saying, after he or she enters the first room, his or her personality. So absolutely, that's why the resume is important. Okay, so what we'll do is, in this session, I'll spend time deconstructing the different parts of the resume, and we'll have a quick discussion, right, on the best practices, do's and don'ts on each parts of the resume. So I want your full attention here for the next, I don't know, 45 to 50 minutes while we cover the different parts of the resume. What I would suggest is, put your phones on silent, or I'll do that myself, so that you don't get disturbed for the next 45 to 60 minutes. Okay. So let's get into the today's session. Okay. So the first important, right, we'll talk about the different parts of the resume. So before we get into the different parts of the resume, I'll just quickly brief you, right, what are most common parts, and I'm sure you could relate to it, right? You start with your introduction, which is your name and your contact details, email ID, etc. Then you move into your professional summary. Some people call it key objectives, some people call it highlight, some people call it key summary, right? Whatever the name is, basically the objective is to give a brief introduction about yourself. Then you move into your experience section. You talk about your different past experiences of different roles, and then that is usually the most important part in terms of the real estate that it takes on the resume, right? That might take like 70% of your resume space. Once you complete your profession experience, then you talk about things like educational qualification, right? What is your highest education qualifications? What are the degree certifications you have? And then you finally, if you want, in some countries they do, some countries they don't. But if you would like, you can have some section which might be about hobbies or your passion or your skills, which is always a good to have section, right? So these are typically different parts of a resume, starting from your introduction to key objectives, educational qualifications, professional experience, and maybe if you want to have your hobbies listed on your resume. Okay. Any other parts, right? Any other parts you think could be part of your resume apart from whatever I just said? Okay. No, right. So I think we covered like most of the important ones, but there might be some other parts that you may want to have, right? Which is okay. Okay. Certifications is what Shivansh is saying. Yes. You can have the certifications part along with your education or maybe as a separate section. Project samples, right? That's a good one, right? So somebody saying project sections. You can have a link to your right to your projects or to your Google Drive where interviewer can see like what projects you've worked on, what internships you've worked on. Okay. So yeah, those are like more or less the key components of your resume, and we'll go each one by one, right? So the first and the very foremost section is your name, right? Your name in bold letters, in capital letters, followed by your email ID, followed by your LinkedIn profile, followed by your contact number, right? Okay, these are the four most important things that you should be having at the top of your resume. Some people also like to add their picture, which is okay, absolutely fine. If you want to add your picture, that is, in fact, it's going to enhance your resume. Some people want to add their location, which I would probably advise you not to unless you are specifically looking for a position in one particular city or one particular state, right? If you do that, you might restrict your chances of getting hybrid role or remote role, which might be in a different part of the world, right? So ideally, I would not put a location unless I am specifically in Mumbai and I am looking for a role very specifically in Mumbai, right? If that's the case, I might put my location. If not, I may not put my location at all. A lot of people put their full addresses, which I would avoid, right? It wastes space and it doesn't add any value to your resume. A lot of people put like their entire address on the top, which probably may not be the best use of your space on your top of your resume. Okay, any questions on this section, right? I want you to take a look at your resume now, right? Take a look at your resume. How is it different? Any questions do you have on this part? If not, we'll move to the next one. Okay, what if I don't have a local telephone number? Okay, you can give your mobile number, right? So it's okay to give an international number, right? So if you are in a different country, yeah, you can give your international number with the country code. That is absolutely fine. Okay, should academic qualifications come first before work experience? Okay, we'll discuss that when we come to the academic qualification. That's a very good question, right? So let's talk about that. And I have two different opinions, right? And it's different for somebody who's very new or very fresh in terms of experience and somebody who has like 4 to 5 years of experience. So based on what category you fall into, I might have a different opinion on it. But we'll talk about that in the section when we come to the experience and the education. Okay, let's move to the next one. Next section right now. Okay. So next section is your professional summary or your key objectives. Okay, so there's a question, do we need to mention that we are currently pursuing MBA or whatever qualification you are doing? Okay, again, I'll take this question when we come to the education qualification. Let's park it for that section. Okay, let's now talk about the professional summary. What I would suggest is put your questions specific to the different sections right now we are going through, right? If you're talking about the professional summary, ask questions related to that in the chat box. And whenever we come to the education summary, but I'll scroll to all the questions at the end, right? We'll not miss out if you have already put that in the chat box. Okay, so what is a professional summary, right? It is a brief, impactful introduction of yourself, right? It's your introduction that highlights your experience, skills, and achievements. Okay, so it is three things: experience, skills, and achievements. Okay, idea is to immediately grab the recruiters or your manager's attention. Okay, and show why you are a strong fit for the role. Okay, so this is the entire objective of the professional summary or key objective. It's your introduction. It should highlight your experience. It should highlight your skills. It should highlight your achievements. You should immediately grab recruiters or your managers' attention and tell them you are the good fit for this role or why you are a strong fit for this role. So this is the absolute objective of this section. Okay, a lot of people keep this right, make this right very vague. Okay, a lot of people make it very long. I've seen like two paragraphs of professional summaries, professional introduction. It takes like half of the page on the first page of the resume. I don't right. You should be having make it very crisp, right? Don't make it too long. Ideally it should not be more than two sentences, maximum three sentences, maybe two bullet points or maximum 2 to 4 bullet points. That is what I would say, right? So unless you have like a lot of achievements, probably I would restrict it to two to three bullet points, unless you have like a lot of good achievements to share, right? It should not be generic or vague. Okay, it should not happen, right? Somebody could just copy paste your professional summary and just apply it in their resume, right? If that is the case, that is one of the tests you could do to just check if your resume professional summary is too generic or too vague. Ideally, it should be very unique to your case, right? Nobody should be able to copy paste, or you should not be just copy pasting somebody else's professional summary or key objectives on your resume. Okay, if you notice in my case, right, 13 plus years of probably a 1 year or 2 year old resume. So 13 plus years of finance and FP&A experience working with. Okay, okay, these are some achievements, some things that nobody could copy. Just take it off the resume and put it on there, right? So it should be very specific, very unique to you. Okay, it should be concise, unique. It should show, right, what value you will bring to the organization. Okay, and obviously it should capture the recruiter's attention. This might be the first thing the recruiter or the manager might read. So your objective is that it should capture their attention and they should continue reading your resume. The objective of the professional summary is just that they should get hooked on your resume and they should be motivated to continue reading it. Okay, so this is what I had to share on the professional summary. Okay, I'll take the question, a lot of questions in the chat box, right? But I'll come to them once I complete this section. Okay, so I'll just give you some examples of not so effective professional summaries and some probably contrasting, which are best practices. Okay, so let's talk about some not so effective. The experienced FP&A professional with a strong background in finance and track record of success, right? Why do you think is this is not so effective? Right. Again, I'll give you one more. Finance professional seeking to leverage extensive industry knowledge in a dynamic finance environment, right? Why this is not so effective? Tell me. Okay, metrics are missing. Again, it is very generic, right? Anybody could copy paste this. It's too vague. All of those things that we discussed on the previous slide. Okay, it looks like a chat GPT sentence. Yes, it looks like a AI generated sentence. So not very. And now I want you to look at your, right. If you have a professional summary, how many of you are having a professional summary like this? I don't want you to put anything in the chat box, but I just wanted you to observe. And now, right now, you might want to decide, okay, I need to make this or I need to change this. And but how do you change this, right? So here are some examples of effective objectives or effective summaries. Okay. FP&A lead with 14 years of experience, direct responsibility for managing 500 million expense budget at Citi, increase forecasting accuracy by 10% at Coursera, recognized as one of the top 20 FP&A professionals globally for 3 consecutive years. Okay, so these are some one example. Okay, I'll just probably this was my example. I'll give another example. Okay, seasoned auditor with 5 years, 5 plus years of experience, recognized for making process improvements, enhance reporting accuracy by 20%, seeking to leverage my analytic skills for an impact in FP&A capacity. Okay, so these are some examples where you are putting some specific, you're quantifying your experience, you are showing what results you have brought in your previous roles. Okay, so probably much better than some vague objectives that you have on the left side. Okay. Okay. Now let me take maybe I'll just complete this and take questions in the chat box. Okay. Okay. Another example, if you're an accountant, right? Accountant with 3 years of experience, cut month-end close time by 40%, looking to apply my analysis skills in an FP&A role. Okay. These are some examples. Even if you're not working in FP&A, if you're working in some other role, You may want to use that, and you may want to bridge that, right? You have to figure out what is the common skill or what are the transferable skills that you can show that you want to use that as a bridge to your next role in FP&A. Okay, so these are some examples. Now, if you notice, right, do you notice any patterns in this, right? Yellow, orange, green. Do you notice any patterns in this? What have I done in this, right? Any patterns do you notice in all the three effective ones, which you can use in your resume as well? Okay, star, Manoj is saying star. Okay, what else? Okay, numbers. Okay, so I have put some numbers, right? I've quantified it. Okay. So let me just share. Okay, so if you notice, like in all three of them, I have just used a very simple formula, right? It is your experience and your results and your achievements. Okay, so I'll just go back to my previous, right, previous one. Okay, yeah, I am quantifying it. I am sharing numbers, but what I'm doing in each of these sentences, right? It's exactly three sentences. First sentence is my experience. I'm quantifying my experience. Second sentence is what results I've brought in my previous role, right? I'm quantifying the results. And the third one is any specific achievements that I want to highlight, right? All three are very different, right? Experience, everybody can put, right? If you have even 1 year of experience, you can put that. Results is something that you will have to think about what results you brought in your previous role. Like achievements, again, this might come over time once you become better and better in your field, right? In your role. Okay. So I'll again go back to the previous slide. I'll show you how this is experience plus results plus achievement, right? The first yellow part is my experience. Okay. I have quantified that, right? I'm not using a very generic or a vague statement anybody could copy, right? I'm specifically saying 14 years of experience managing $500 million of a budget. Okay. Now, second is my results. Okay. In this case, it is improving forecast accuracy by 10%. In this case, it is improving management reporting accuracy by 25%. In this, it is cutting the month-end close time by 40%. Okay. So all of the things, which is the second sentence, is results. And the third one is achievements. Wherever you have achievements, you can put that, say, for example, right, you might have won, right, some award, some recognition in your previous roles or in general, right? So you may want to highlight that. If not, you can just maybe bridge it to the role that you're looking for. So in this example, in the second and the third example, there are no achievements. I'm just telling them, the person is just telling them, okay, I want to get into an FP&A role, very specifically telling that I am looking for a FP&A role. Okay, so that is the professional summary and key objective. What I want you to do is take your resume, and I want you to now use this formula, experience plus results and achievement. And I want you to see, like, a couple of you share that in the resume. I want you to create your professional summary right now. Okay, and share that in the chat box. Okay, in the meanwhile, I'll take a look at the questions that you guys have posted. Okay, so Rutuja is asking, will a bullet point summary help better than a paragraph? It is absolutely your preference. I prefer bullet points because it is very concise, right? You can have very short sentences which readers can easily read. I personally prefer bullet points, but you can have a paragraph as well, as long as it is not too long. You should not be having more than three sentences for sure, or it should not consume more than 3 lines on the resume. Okay, sentences and lines are different, right? If you make a very long sentence, it could consume multiple lines. So ideally, it should not be more than 2 to 3 sentences, and also not more than 3 lines on your resume. Okay, so Manoj just shared his professional summary or key objectives. Okay, senior accountant with 10 plus years of honored experience in general ledger, sales commission, and financial reporting, proven ability to optimize accounting process, reduce month-end closing by 20%, maintain flawless SOX compliance, deliver 90%, 95% time project completion, and increase client satisfaction by 15% through strategic process improvements, proficient in US GAAP, SAP, Power BI. Okay, can somebody, right, somebody critique it, right? What could have been done better, right? I think if the formula has been right, he's followed the formula very well, and he used the experience and then tried to share the results, right? What could have been done better? It could be more concise, absolutely, right? I wanted to share that, but I wanted to also see, right? I wanted to see if others also feel the same. Okay, so you've covered a lot of things. What I would suggest is just pick 1 or 2 things. Get rid of some of the details, right? You don't have to mention that expertise in sales commission, finance reporting, proven ability, right? All of this. Maybe you could edit it well and fit it in like 2 or 3 sentences. I think you've done a good job in terms of articulating it, but only thing is you have to make it slightly more concise and put it in lesser sentence or a bullet point. So I'll take some more questions very specific to this section. Okay. All the other questions I'll come to, but maybe at the end. Should we put qualifications next to the name? I probably would say if it is a qualification, right, like a CA or a doctor, you can. Okay. But probably if it's just a usual degree, right? Like, I don't know if depending on your professional the certification that you have taken, what it allows you, right? So if it allows you to do that, I know there are specific rules for specific bodies where you need to follow those rules. So make sure that you follow those rules while you put the qualifications. Okay, if they allow you in terms of their right, in terms of their what do you call their ethics and all, so you should definitely use that considering all of that in mind. But yes, I have seen people use CA, I have seen people use doctor if they have done a doctorate. So you could use that. Okay. Any prefixes, if you wish, you think you can use, you should be you can use that. Okay. Is it mandatory to add professional summary for freshers? Okay. So if this is absolutely your first role, right? You don't have any experience at all. So what I would suggest is you may not have experience, right? So you can skip this portion, but then you think about the other two, right? Can you provide some results that you have generated maybe in some of the projects in college or in your internship, right? Think about any other achievements that you have had in your academic life, right? So maybe you don't have the experience, but for freshers, definitely you should think about any results, any achievements that you have or you want to highlight on your resume. Okay, what if you don't have any specific achievements related to that role? Okay, so the achievements do not need to be related to that role. So if you are applying for a different role, but you have achievements in another role, that is absolutely okay. So if you are applying for, say, for example, if you're applying for FP&A role and you're working in accounting, the achievements can absolutely be related to accounting. It doesn't have to be FP&A because you never worked in FP&A, right? So it doesn't have to be role that you are applying for. It can be from any of your previous roles. Okay, do we have to link or similar summary on LinkedIn and our physical copy? It's not required, but you could do that. No? Okay, you don't have to have the exact same summary on your resume as your LinkedIn because in LinkedIn you have more, right? You probably have more space and freedom compared to your resume. So you may want to add a little more details about it. Okay, if you have a work experience of 2 years, then should you provide professional summary? Absolutely. So you talk about I have 2+ years of experience, or I have 2 years of experience in XYZ field, right? In finance, and you talk about then your results and your achievement. Yeah. Anything more than anything, right? 1 year or more, you could you should put the experience section. Even if it is like 9, 10 months, you can say, okay, about 1 year experience in whatever role you have worked in. Okay, so there's one more person who has put the professional experience. I'll just read that out. I am a chartered accountant with 5 years of experience in specializing FP&A and financial management. My professional journey has been primarily in the industrial IoT sector, where I have honed my skills in bridging complexities of the manufacturing and service industry. The dual experience allows me to deliver strategic financial insights and drive performance in dynamic and technologically in advanced environments. Can someone, okay. So yes, so can somebody tell Rutuja what needs to improve, right? What are the things that she can improve upon? Okay, Manoj is saying personal nouns should be avoided. Okay. Okay, so I think that what that means is I am a chartered accountant could be just chartered accountant with over 5 years experience, right? My professional journey, that could have been avoided, right? That entire sentence could have been avoided. You could have just summarized it a little better. Okay, two things I see missing, right? So one is it is slightly long, right? Especially the last portion is slightly vague, right? The last one or two sentence, the last one sentence especially, right? It sounds a little bit vague. Okay, so maybe you may want to just refine that. You may want to add some results, right? Some quantified results that you may want to bring in. So you may want to just make it a little more specific, and you may want to just make it more concise. So I think that would be my feedback. Okay, so there's a question which probably I missed. Is a professional summary okay? So Zishan, which question? Okay, I'll just come to that. Is professional summary must or avoidable since the point added in work? So it is highly recommended, right? Because sometimes what happens is when manager or your recruiter is reviewing the profiles, right? They may not have the time to read the entire resume. Okay, so what they typically would do is they will first read the summary, okay, and then they can decide based on the summary, right, if this is the right fit for the role. Okay, if based on the summary, some people might take a decision, okay, this person is not a good fit, and they might just skip your resume. So I think adding a professional summary, you are helping the recruiter or the manager to filter out your resume in the relevant ones, right? It helps you get shortlisted, especially if the shortlisting is happening manually, it's not happening through a tool. So I would highly recommend you put that. Okay. Okay. So I think we should move to the next section in the interest of time. Okay. What we'll do is we'll go to the next or the most important in terms of the right in terms of the space it takes on the resume. We will talk about your work experience or your professional experience. Okay, again, very similar to your professional summary, but here you have more space or you have more opportunity to elaborate that further. Okay, so you can probably, if you felt okay in the professional summary, I could not talk a lot about some of the points. These are the right where you can talk about a lot of separate bullet points for different roles. Okay, so you have to highlight results, not just duties. A lot of people just highlight what they do, but not what is the outcome of the duties that they have. Right, so you have to quantify your achievements. Again, we saw that those examples in the professional summary. Okay, so again, you have to continue. No, don't just list down your roles or your duties, but frame it in a way that okay, this is what I was doing, and I was able to bring this result. Okay, if there are five bullet points that you have and you only have right results for two of them or three of them, you can probably decide if you don't want to have the other two. Alright, okay, if you want to prioritize the three which you are showing results. Okay, so that is probably the first thing I would say. Second thing is you need to sell only relevant experience. This is one of the biggest mistakes. Again, this will come in the mistake section later on. Okay, this is one of the biggest mistakes people do when they are moving from a non-FP&A role, say like an accounting, audit, or a tax role, into FP&A. The entire CV talks about, say, for example, some person has worked in audit for 5 years or 7 years. Okay, that entire CV talks about, obviously, it'll talk about the audit role, right? They've worked in three or four different audit roles, so it'll talk about audit roles. That is acceptable. But inside the different roles, right? Inside the different roles, you have to prioritize those experiences which are transferable skills to FP&A. Okay. So for example, in audit, you might be doing five different things or 10 different things. Okay. Say for example, in audit, you are working right on control testing, right? You're working on preparing checklists, you're working on preparing audit reports, you're working on preparing analytical review for the client. Right? Okay, you have to identify out of these five things what are the relevant things for your role that you are applying. It could be any role, right? If you're applying for a FP&A role, it could be applying for any role. So you have to pick and choose, right? From the 10 things you are doing in that previous role, what are the three or four things that could be easily transferable as skills in the new role? In our case, we're talking about FP&A. Okay, so if I was working in audit, I would only put those points which are relevant for FP&A. I would not put the points which are not relevant to FP&A, right? So I would focus on the analysis part. I would focus on the reporting part, okay, which are some of the skills which are transferable to your role that you are applying. Okay, so try to sell only relevant experience. You don't have to sell your all the things that you do in your previous role, right? You have to talk about only relevant things. Okay, what happens is while you're listing like 10, 15 things, right, you forget about the most relevant things and it gets lost in those 8 or 10 bullet points, right? So instead of having like 7 or 8 bullet points, have only 3 or 4 bullet points which are very relevant to the new role that you are applying for. Okay. Okay. We talked about this, quantify your achievements. We'll talk about the star, right, in the interview. Somebody mentioned that in the chat box also. So we'll take that maybe at a later point in the webinar, maybe at the end. Okay. So quantify your achievements. We've seen that example in the professional summary section, right? 40% reduction in the month-end close time or 20% improvement in the forecast accuracy, right? Those are examples of quantifying your achievements. Okay. For this, customize your role and use relevant keywords. So one of the other mistakes people do is they use the same resume for all the different applications they make, right? If they're applying for 10 different roles, right, 10 different applications they're making in a day, they would use the same resume for all the different roles. One of the things that you could do is you could customize it for each of the different roles by slightly changing it in terms of the keywords dependent on the job description. So you have to look at the job description and tailor. You should have one base resume and then tailor your resume that you are using for the application for that particular role very slightly, right? You don't have to make it like a completely different resume. You can pick that as a base resume and then maybe make like 4 or 5 changes here and there in terms of the keywords so that the person who's reviewing your resume, they get a feeling, okay, this person is the right fit for the role. Okay, and it might just be changing some of the words, right? It might be just reusing some different words instead of the words that you have used in the resume. Okay, and formatting is important, right? So a lot of a lot of lot of places I've seen like 4 page resumes or 3.5 page resumes. Ideally, you want to have a very short and a concise document, right? Best thing would be, right, if you have less than 5, 7 years of experience, it should not be more than 1 page. If you have more than 5, 7 years of experience, maybe you could go to 1.5, 2 pages, just because you have more experience to share, right? So ideally, it should not be more than 2 pages. My resume after 10 years of experience is still 1 page, where it's very easy for the interviewer to just quickly read it. Okay, again, you're making life easy for the interviewer so that they can easily read the document when they are reviewing it. If somebody who's sharing a 4 page resume versus you sharing a 1 page resume, it's easier for the reviewer to go through your resume. And the person who's reviewing the resume may not have a lot of time when they are doing that. Okay, so they might just have 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, you want to make their job as easy as possible by making your resume as concise, as short as possible. Okay, so some examples of work experience section, right? So I'll just share like what are some good practices. Yeah, the things that we discussed here, right? Highlight results, tell your relevant experience, quantify achievements, customize for your role. Okay, all of these, maybe some examples I'll share. The first example is of analyst working in finance. Okay, so you can see a couple of bullet points. Worked on budget, right? And resulted in a cost cutting of 20% within the first year. Okay, you can see exactly the task that the person is doing and what resulted. I agree that you may not have like all three, right? You may not in one role, you may not have like results for like all the 4 bullet points, but at least try to get or keep this in mind so that you are always working towards it in your present role. Okay, so it may not be today, but you should focus on getting results in your present role so that you can market it later on when you are applying for your new role. Okay. Another couple of examples for somebody who's working in audit, right? Okay, I just maybe read 1 or 2 of them. Okay, identified and address risk preventing potential losses of $100,000 annually for one of the client. Okay. You need not name the client if it is confidential. You can just say one of the client if that is the case. Okay. But you can see, right, what you have done, what the result was, okay, and how it benefited the organization or how it benefited the client. Okay, so there's a clear structure here, what you do and what result it has brought to the company or the client. Another example, somebody who is working in accounting wanting to move into FP&A looked at the capital budgeting process and guided decisions for investment of $50 million. Okay. So again, I'm quantifying this. I looked at the investment decision or I analyzed the investment decision for $50 million worth of a project. Okay. Right. So you can see, right, other examples. I'll share this probably with you at the end and you can take a look at the examples, but there's a clear framework, right? What you did and what was the result. Okay. Task plus result. That those things that need to come out. It you may not have it for all your bullet points, right? All your experiences, but for one role or for every role, if you can even have 1 or 2, that should be good enough. Okay. And maybe others can be just what you have done or what your role was. Okay. Okay. If you notice in my right, you may want to keep it very concise. I have not put more than 3 bullet points or not more than 2 sentences or 2 lines for each of the bullet points. Right? I see a lot of people put like paragraphs of paragraphs, right, in each of the bullet point, right? I see people like 4 or 5 lines and then another 4 or 5 lines. That makes a resume to be going right into third or the fourth page. You want to make it so crisp and so concise that it is easily readable by the whoever is reviewing. Again, because of my experience as an author, I can probably review this better, right? Because I have been working and writing for the last 3 to 4 years. I can say that, okay, you can easily cut down any sentences which is more than 3 lines consuming on your resume into one sentence by just putting some thought and some effort behind it. Okay. And you can use ChatGPT for that. Right? You can just put that sentence in ChatGPT and just ask prompt ChatGPT, okay, can you make this more crisp and can you make this more concise? And it will give you a lot of options when you use such AI tools. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the professional experience section. I'll take a pause, see if there are any questions on this section. If not, we'll move to the next one. Okay? I'll give it maybe 10 seconds and then move to the next section. Okay, so the next section is education. A lot of you asked me question, right? I saw a couple of questions on, right? Should the education section be before the work experience section, or should it be after the work experience section? So here is my opinion. Again, this is my personal opinion after reviewing so many resumes. You could obviously have a different opinion. If you are somebody who's having, say, less than 1 year of experience, I would prioritize the education section first, right? Because it's very logical. You don't have a lot of work experience, but you might have a very good academic career, right? You might have had a lot of good academic things that you may want to share, right? So if I'm somebody who's having, let's say, less than 1 or 2 years of experience, I would prioritize the education section first if it is worth sharing, right? If I have had, right, good grades, good percentages, right, I may want to prioritize that. Okay. Anybody more than 1 or 2 years of experience, I think you should prioritize your work experience first. Okay, because that is what the interviewer is more interested in right now after you have spent 2 years working in any other role. Okay, they are more interested in what you have done in your previous role compared to what was your education. Although it has to be there later on in the resume, right? You cannot skip it. But in terms of the priorities or the ordering, if you have like less than 2 years of experience, you may want to prioritize education first. If you have one or two or more experience, right, then you may want to prioritize your experience over the education. Should we have a specific template that is ATS friendly for shortlisting of resume? So this is question. So Amrisha, the thing is that, right, there are, right, a lot of companies use very customized ATS systems, right? So there might be like, I don't know, hundreds of ATS tool providers or vendors, and you don't know which company is using which ATS, right? So I would probably not, I mean, you could optimize for ATS, but it's going to be very difficult, right? I would probably spend my time optimizing it for the manager or the reviewer. If you do that, then the ATS will automatically get taken care of, right? But if you know, right, if this particular organization is using this particular ATS tool, then you could, right, figure out, okay, for this particular ATS tool, this is the most friendly template. Okay, but there cannot be one template that I can give it to you. Okay, because different companies might be using different ATS tools, and some might be using a tool which might be 7 years or 8 years back old, right? So that ATS might be very different from some company who's using a very modern ATS tool, which is like developed or which is kept on improving over the last right over the time. Okay. So because of those reasons, I have not probably spent any of my time optimizing for ATS. I have spent time optimizing it for the manager, and the ATS usually gets taken care of. But I'll share with you a couple of tools, right? Don't worry, we have a couple of tools that I can share that will help you optimize for ATS as well. So we'll talk about that later in the session, maybe in the next 20 minutes. Okay, so there's a question from Kanaya, whether there are common points to be taken care of while building a resume to prevent ATS rejection. Okay, so what I can say is a common point is you should not include any, right? Your format should be a plain Word document or a plain PDF document. You should not be including any sections which could cause ATS or any other tool for it to, right, ingest your data into it, right? So ideally, I've seen a lot of people use infographics, right? So I would typically avoid a lot of infographics. I would typically avoid a lot of like, different formats, right? Ideally, it should be in a very straightforward format, right? One below the other. It should not be like two different parts or four different parts. Usually, that you see in some of the fancy resumes, that is something that probably may not work in a lot of ATS tools. Okay, so if you create a resume on Canva using a lot of visualization and a lot of infographics, that might look visually great, okay, but may not be ATS compliant. Okay, education. Let's go to the education section. Very simple. I may not spend a lot of time on this. So you will list your degrees or your certifications, okay, from your highest qualification and then to the older ones. Okay, so if your highest qualification is say November 2012, I would probably put that first and then go chronologically. And I would put like my top three certifications or degrees that are very relevant to the role that I'm applying. Okay, I have done another two degrees, right? I have done company secretary. I have done CFA level 2, right? I have not mentioned all of that because those are not relevant now to my FP&A. So ideally, you may want to put only degrees and certifications which are relevant to your role that you are applying. Okay. Certifications also are important. So say, for example, if you're applying for any role for audit, right? So certification in audit would be a good thing to share. If you're applying for a role in FP&A, then a certification in FP&A would be a good thing to share. At least they would know that you have put in a lot of effort or some effort in upskilling yourself in the field that you are applying for. Okay, so for example, if you've taken FMBA, FPHA certification, financial modeling, any of these certifications, like CGFPA, FP&A Masterclass, etc., which are very specific to FP&A, definitely then you should mention those certifications. Okay, there's a question from Wheeling, and I'll just read that. What if I studied diploma course recently, but higher education was 10 years before? Yeah, that's okay. So that is okay. So you can put your highest qualification, which in your case is your diploma. In your case is your higher education, which might be say 2014, and you can have a gap, right, of 10 years. Right, a lot of people go back to school. A lot of people go back to university after 10 years break, which is okay. So that is absolutely okay. So which one? The question is, right, which one should come on top, right? The one which is your primary qualification or your highest qualification will come on top. And then if you're doing something which is as a certification, right, as an add-on, that can come next. But yeah, if you're doing a master, right, in this case, your master is higher qualification than your diploma, right? Then you may want to put that above your diploma. So in that case, I would put my master's on top, and I would say whatever, right, 2023 to present, and I would mention that its graduation date is somewhere in 2025 or 2026, whatever the date is. We don't require to put 10th, 12th, and graduation source. That's a good question. So again, the answer will depend on your experience. So if you have less than 1 or 2 years of experience, then you can put graduation for sure. 12th, you may want to put, but I may want to skip, right, 10th. So for people who have like less than 2 years of experience, they may want to put 12th, but if you have more than 2 years of experience, and if you have a higher qualification that you want to share, right? For example, graduation, for example, a professional qualification, for example, a very relevant certification in that area, right? In that case, your 10th and 12th marks may not be relevant. So I would not, especially if you have more than 5 years of experience, then definitely you should not be putting your 10th and 12th scores in your resume. Unless you don't have anything else, right? If you don't have any other qualification that you can share or a certification, then it's a different thing. But ideally, if you have two good qualifications, professional and academic qualification, then you don't have to share your 10th and 12th grades. Uh, if you have like more than 4 or 5 years. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think we will move to the next section. Any more questions on the education part of the resume? Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, this is, I would probably say this is very geography specific, right? I know some countries, they absolutely don't like sharing hobbies and interests, right? I would not take names of the countries, but there are some regions or countries where they absolutely don't, they have a culture of not having hobbies or interests. If that's the case, then it is absolutely okay, don't have it. But unless that's the case, I would highly recommend you having put some of your hobbies in your resume, right? At least 1 or 2 of them. Okay. What it does, it gives your employer a glimpse into your overall personality, not just your work side of it. Okay. But when you get into an organization and when you are working with people, they get to know your overall personality or your what do you do outside of your 9 to 5, right? So that is something that people are usually interested in whenever they're interviewing. Also, they may want to know, okay, what is this person doing outside their working hours? In terms of the hobbies and interests, right? What is this person interested or what motivates this person? That is something. In fact, in your interviews also, you might get a question, right? What is your interest or what is your hobby? That might be a very common question in some of the interviews. It shows that you have a balanced life. Don't include any, right? Just to add to the resume. Don't include any hobbies that are not a true reflection of your personality. Okay, I've seen in the interview in many cases where I've interviewed people and they've put some hobby in their resume. Okay, they've put, okay, I've read, my reading is my hobby. And when I asked them, okay, what is the last book they have read? And then they cannot share it. Okay, a lot of people mention traveling is my hobby, right? And when I asked them when is the last time they took a trip, right? And then they would say like it was 8 years back or 10 years. So make it very genuine. Don't just put for the sake of putting it, right? Make it very authentic. And what this usually happens, right? by chance or in a scenario, right, where there is a common hobby, right, with your interviewer, you get good conversation, right? For example, this cricket and movies, right, is going to be a common hobby for many people, right? Okay. So watching movies, watching cricket, right, is a common hobby for many people, especially in India. Okay. And a lot of interviewers would relate to it, and they might just ask me, okay, what do you think about the most recent tournament that is going on, right? Who do you think will win, right? A lot of conversations go in that direction. They might ask you, okay, what is the last movie that you watched? Okay, which movies do you like? Which you like? Okay, so that conversation is only possible when you make that evident on your CV. Okay, and that conversation, right? It builds trust, and it shows that you are right. You're not just a robot who's just working 9 to 5. Right? You're also having a balanced life outside your working. So ideally, I would highly recommend, unless it's not a culture in your country, or it's not a general thing to do in your country or your region. Okay, so that is on your resume. So how to make it ATS friendly? I'm coming to that. We will cover a couple of tools that I want to share with you. We will cover that, and which is ATS friendly. Okay, so that I think brings me to the end of the session. Right, I am right on time. Right, I planned for a 1 hour session, and certain hobbies and interests can highlight unique skills that are actually relevant to the job. Okay, so if there are certain hobbies which you can just correlate to the job, then definitely you should mention those skills. Okay, so just the last part, common mistakes. I might have covered all of this in during the different sections, right? While talking to different sections, it's just going to be a recap. Okay, summary of experience, right? A lot of people just summarize their experience. They don't quantify it. They don't market it. They don't share what is the benefit that the company is going to get out of it, right? So don't just summarize. Try to market it. Try to bring out what you've done in terms of quantifying it and what benefit the company can expect from having you in their organization. Okay. Too long, it should not be more than 2 pages for sure. Try to get it into 1 page if you can. It should not be like it should not be definitely 4 pages long. Okay, not quantifying. We already talked about this. A lot of resumes I come across, they have grammatical mistakes, typos. This poorly reflects on you, right? So probably that might reflect that these mistakes will happen when you work on the job as well. So that might be the impression. Although it might not be right deliberate mistake that you might have done, right? It might be just a one-off thing. It might not never repeat on your job, but that impression will pass on to your okay, this person has made a grammatical or a spelling mistake. He might or she might not be able to reply to you, or he might or she might not be able to talk to somebody who is very senior, right? So those are the perceptions people usually would build if you make any grammatical typos. Make sure you double check, triple check, get it checked from one of your friend, right, somebody who you trust, right, one of your mentors. You get it reviewed from them. Make sure it is absolutely grammatical, right grammar and right spellings and all. Don't misrepresent anything. As I mentioned, right, make sure that everything that you mention is accurate in terms of whatever you have done in your past experience. I have seen a lot of people misrepresent it, and when we ask about it in the interview, then they get caught. And probably that is the end of the right. Probably that is going to be the end of the interview and the end of the discussion at that in that case. Okay, ignoring the needs of the employer, not customizing the resume, which already we talked about. Right, you have to have a base resume and then customize it for different roles that you are applying. It doesn't mean that you have to create a separate resume altogether. Just make maybe few changes here and there so that they are slightly customized using the keywords for the new role that you are applying or the different role that you are applying. Okay. Don't use a lot of generic words or buzzwords, right, that we discussed while we were discussing the professional summary section. Okay, so I think that brings me to the end of the session, right? That is what I had to share. Quickly, I'll just talk about the FP&A Masterclass that I mentioned about. So the batch 17 is starting next week, 8th of March. It's usually 1 month, 4 sessions. Saturdays, we meet 3 hours and we cover 4 modules: budgeting, forecasting, management reporting, data storytelling, presentation, and business partnering. So just in case if you are interested in learning more about this, you can reach out to me. Okay. This is the timetable. It starts on 8th of Feb and the last session would be on 1st of March. And then there's a Q&A call at the end of the quarter. Okay, so this is usually the timetable. It's 4 live sessions and then a Q&A call. Okay. Along with that, you get our entire bundle of the self-paced material, right? So all the resume preparation material, all the interview preparation material, all the mastermind calls with different guest speakers we have had in the past 2.5 years. All of that you will get along with the masterclass when you join that. Okay, so you're not just joining the live program, but later on you can access all of these resources for lifetime when you join the FP&A Masterclass. A lot of books are available on Amazon. If you're not joining the courses, if you want to upskill yourself, you can consider one of these books. Especially the entire session that I have done, I've documented that in the From Accounting to FP&A book. This is chapter number 7. Like these, there are other chapters in the book which you might be interested in. For example, the first 90 days FP&A roadmap, or the FP&A interview preparation secret, or the FP&A skills toolbox. So some people learn it via books, some people learn it via courses. Whatever suits you the best, you can check these books on Amazon. Okay. Now, as I promised, there are a few tools that I wanted to share. So for the ATS people, right, this is the one tool that I have used exhaustively for making sure that the resume is ATS friendly. I'll just drop that in the chat box. And there could be other tools, right, like this, right? So maybe I may not be aware of the more recent ones, but this is something I have been using it for the last 8, I think 6 or 8 years, right? Since the time I've been applying, and it has got better and better over time. Again, I have not, right, I don't have any, right, I don't have any affiliation with this thing. It's something that I have used over the past 5, 6 years. That's why I'm sharing this with you. So what it does is I just quickly share how it works. So what you have to do is you have to first of all upload your resume. Okay, first of all, you have to create an account here. Okay, you have to say, log in, and there might be registration process. Okay, I would say I would log in as my name. I would put my name, or your Google account directly. You could log in through. Okay, and then you could just upload your resume, and there might be an upload resume option, and you could upload your resume and just bring one resume that I can probably put, right? I will just probably use one resume. I'm just sharing one random resume here. It will ingest the resume, and then it will give you all the things that you need to take care of for the ATS. Whatever things that it will give you a ATS score, right? It might give you a score in the range of, I don't know, whatever, based on how good your resume is. Okay. It might give you, right now it is giving you a 22 score, right? You can improve this, you can make this 22 to maybe a 70 or a 65, right? 70, 65 is a decent score by following all the things that you are, right? All the things that they are mentioning to fix. Okay. So they are telling you, again, they are very similar things. If you notice, right, whatever we have covered in the webinar, they are telling you to quantify the impact. You're not quantified the impact, right? Weak or weak action works. Okay. Unnecessary section, right? So you could go through these, right? There might be 20 different things, right? And it might not be right. So you may be able to so you might be able to see what the mistakes are, but it might not be free, right? You might have to pay a very minimum amount, right? I think it might be anywhere in the range of 200, 300 rupees to get just one resume reviewed. But I would suggest it's worth investing that money, right? Because you will get the thorough analysis of your resume, and you can also fix it, right and there. So for example, if I were to fix this point, I would just create fix, and it'll have some AI tool linked with it where it can rewrite it for me and make it better, right? So this is a very good tool. I have personally used, and right now over the last few years, it has got better with the use of AI. Okay, so this is something that you could use for making your resume ATS friendly. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question on the ATS, right? All of the people who had questions on how do you make it, you can find some templates as well for ATS friendly resumes. Again, what I would caution you is don't trust them blindly. There are like hundreds of different ATS tools around the world, right? Different companies use different tools, and all of them are slightly different. Some of them are very old. They might be following different tools. Some of them are modern. They might be following different tools. So ideally, you should optimize for the reader, not for the tool, right? You should optimize for it, but if you optimize for the reader, you might probably end up optimizing it for the tool as well. So there's a question: is the masterclass conducted every month? It is. So it is almost every month, right? So usually we start on the first Saturday of the month, and then we wrap up on the Saturday. So I would say it is almost every month. Maybe there might be a gap of maybe a 1 month, right? So during the year, right, we usually do 9 to 10 batches. So yes, almost every month, but there might be just one or odd month that we might take a break. Okay. So the next one is in March. So if you cannot join in February, then you can join the March batch as well. So the March one is already scheduled and announced, but the April onwards timetable will be scheduled after a few weeks. What is the difference between your Launchpad and the Masterclass? So Launchpad is self-paced, right? Content is exactly the same, Launchpad and Masterclass. Why people prefer Masterclass over Launchpad is because of live interaction. case studies which cannot be done in the recorded format, right? Group activities. Some of the learnings that can only come out is through interaction with live faculties. Okay, so I would say 80% the Launchpad is curriculum-wise similar to the masterclass. Only benefit you get when you come to the masterclass is one, that you can ask questions to the faculty there and there if you are stuck anywhere. That is one of the biggest advantage. Second advantage is that you get to participate in those live activities that I talked about. And the third advantage is that you are a part of a community which where we meet every month end, where you can ask questions, right? So it's not just after 1 month we end the relationship. You get added to a Q&A call group where we invite you every month, and we on a fourth Saturday of the month we do a Q&A call. And if any question you have, even after 6 months from the course or 1 year from the course or 2 years from the course, you can join that Q&A call and get your questions answered. So that is like the major difference between Launchpad. If you are someone who likes to study it on your own, right, at your own pace, then Launchpad might be the better option for you. But if you're someone who likes to ask questions, interact with the faculty, and that's how you learn. I've seen a lot of people buy Launchpad and then not complete it. Okay. So if you're somebody who has taken like hundreds of courses or like maybe 10 recorded courses and never completed like one of them, probably Launchpad not be a better option. Probably Masterclass would be a better option. Okay, some people have asked me for the link for the masterclass. So let me just drop that in the chat box. And here is a code that you can use for a discount of $50, which is early 50. And I put that in the chat box. Okay, now let me come back to the resume, the tools that we're talking about. So this is one of the tools that I've used. Another tool that I particularly found interesting was, I'll not be able to show you exact details of it. Right? You may want to explore that later on. Okay. It is something called as Crystal Nose. I'll again bring that on the screen. Now, this is more useful for the interview purpose, not for your resume, right? This is when you, after the resume get shortlisted, you called for the interview. You can see the personality of the interviewer, right? Is the interviewer an extrovert? Is an interviewer introvert? What kind of personality is the interviewer? That can help you a lot, right? Decide how your strategy is going to be in the interview. I have used this very extensively in the last, I don't know, 5, 7 years. So I'll just see if I can show you a demo of it, right? If I can show you a demo of it, what you need to do is you need to share your LinkedIn profile. You will need the LinkedIn profile link of the interviewer. I'll test this on me, right? I'll pick my LinkedIn profile link and let me just accept this first. Okay. And let me see, add profiles. Okay. And I would put this. Okay. I put this. It will definitely, it will pick it from LinkedIn, right? It has the LinkedIn connectivity. So it will tell you exactly the interviewer's personality, right? Which is pretty cool, right? I would want to know who's interviewing me. And if I know that, I would probably want to know what their behavior is and what their personality type is. Okay. So it says RCEP tends to crave accuracy and efficiency and are likely to question on exaggerated statements. This is probably true, right? Looking at my LinkedIn profile, it has created a persona of me. Okay. It'll tell you Asif is most likely private and purposeful. They may tend to be very matter of fact, avoid unrealistic ideas and unnecessary changes. Don't be surprised if they get frustrated when rushed to produce something without. Okay, so it gives you a lot of things that you can probably, right. I think it also has a section where you can see what kind of interview, what you should expect in an interview. So for example, in this meeting, right, in this one, okay, right now it is locked, right? So probably earlier it was free. Right now we have made it premium, right? So there is an option where you can go for, right, the ones. Okay, if you're negotiating with this person, what you need to take care of. Okay, when you are following up with this person, what you need to take care of. When you are interviewing, I think somewhere there's an option for interview as well. What are the things that you need to take care of. Okay. So when you probably I have exhausted my free credits, right? But when you register, you might get certain free credits every month, right? Maybe one or two. That might be just sufficient enough for you to for your interview purposes. So that is the second tool that I wanted to share, which is Crystal Nose. And the third one is ChatGPT, which is probably very popular, right? Which you might be already using it in your day-to-day life. Okay, so I use that for interview preparation a lot. If I appear for any interviews these days, right, I usually use ChatGPT to give me a star framework, right, from my resume. Okay, so for example, if the question comes, can you describe a time when you had improved a forecasting process or See, for example, can you talk about a time when you worked on a budgeting process? Okay, you can just tell ChatGPT, just bring it up here. Okay. Can you use the framework? Answer the question. Tell me about a time when you work on budget. And this could be anything, right? Anything that you are applying for, right? It could be management reporting, it could be forecasting, right? Depending on whatever role, right? It could be preparing audit report, right? Whatever, right? Tell me about a time when you've done something, right? Which is most likely question, right? They might ask you in any shape or form, right? It may not be exactly framed like this, but they're trying to gauge your experience in your previous role. Yeah. Okay. So it'll give you exact framework using the situation, task, action, result, right? Okay. My task was to revamp the budgeting approach, ensuring more. Obviously, this will be slightly right. You cannot just use this directly. I would not use this directly as it is in the interview. I would probably take this as a starting point and make changes, right? It is giving you a lot of good suggestions. Okay, my task, okay, so it is telling you my task was to do this particular activity. I may not want to just use this budgeting approach. I may want to make it very specific to my role. Okay, where I had to collaborate with multiple departments. Here I would specifically put, okay, I had to collaborate with marketing and the sales, okay, whatever I used to do in my role. Okay. What did I do? I introduced driver-based budgeting model. Okay. I could have done something else. I could have introduced a template which was very friendly for everybody to use. Like I could replace it, but it gives you a good starting point to prepare for your interviews. And if you do this for like all the points that you in your resume or in your job description, that gives you a good way to prepare for your interview. Okay, so that probably brings me to the end of my session today. Soon in one of the other webinars. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.